Welcome, we are live. Welcome to What's New in Prisma. And today I am joined by my very own colleague, Mahmoud. Mahmoud, how's it going?
It's going great. How about you?
Pretty well. It's pretty nice and sunny here in Berlin, and we're just enjoying the summer vibes. You also just came back from a bit of a short holiday. Is that right?
Yes, I went to Hurghada for a couple of days. Like, that's a city in Egypt. It was super fun.
Nice. So today we're going to discuss the 2.28.0 release of Prisma. And for that, I'm going to load up the release notes. But before we get into this, we're going to go over the release, and then we'll talk a bit about the Prisma data platform, which you may have heard about. We also will discuss a bit some of the upcoming features and the data proxy, and then we have a lot of other small updates from the community. So on that note, let's bring up the release notes. So this release is a relatively small release, you could say, especially if we just focus on the open source aspect of Prisma. However, usually when we have this is a sign that we have some bigger stuff brewing, and hopefully you'll get a taste of that in one of the upcoming releases. So in this release, we had a lot of MongoDB improvements. As you may know, we just promoted the MongoDB connector to preview, which means it's a bit more stable and it's closer to being production ready. And a lot of you have reported bugs, have given and shared your feedback, and we've been looking at that. And so we had a bunch of these issues regarding the filtering of arrays of an ID, filtering by relations wasn't working, and also concurrent find unique queries were leading to an error. So all of those have been resolved. So thank you to those of you who've reported these issues to our team. This really helps us bring this to GA. Another big announcement that we made was Prisma adopting semantic versioning. Some of you may know we have followed the semantic versioning convention in terms of the NPM releases. However, we weren't adhering strictly to this, and so with this new release policy that adheres more strictly, it should make your upgrade process a lot simpler. And you can read a lot more about this in the blog post which we just shared. You can find that at the blog, and we'll also drop a link so that you can find that quicker. The very brief summary of that is that we will now only roll out breaking changes in major releases. What this means is that in the near future, we're going to probably release version 3 of Prisma, but there's nothing for you really to worry about. We're going to have an upgrade guide, and as we always do, we make these easy. Mahmoud, what has been your experience sort of working with semantic versioning? And I know you're also working on another video to explain this. What's your take on this? Have you worked with tools like Dependabot and Renovate? I'd love to hear
Yeah,
your
so
experiences.
so managing dependencies is hard because dependencies change, projects keep evolving, and sometimes you just end up with a lot of old dependencies. So that's where semantic versioning comes in. And what happens is when all of these dependencies follow the same convention, where breaking changes will be released in major versions, and then updates in minor versions, and then bug fixes in patch. And yeah, so it makes things a lot easier. Wait, do people still hear me? Oh, okay, yeah, hear yourself. Cool. So as I was saying, semantic versioning is useful so that when you're managing your dependencies, things work correctly. You can easily update them, and yeah, you can expect that breaking changes will happen in major versions. And yeah, if there's a minor release, then things should be fine. But yeah, so it's great.
Yeah, that's great. And as a general sort of best practice, I think it's. I was really diving deep into Renovate over the last couple of weeks. If you're not familiar, Renovate is a bot that will help you with the upgrades. I'm sorry, my computer's rather slow when I'm live streaming. But Renovate Bot will help you with your with managing and upgrading the dependencies, and you can fine tune it. But as a general best practice, I highly recommend to pin your Prisma dependencies and not use the sort of the tilde or the caret format in your package JSON. And if you use something like Renovate, it'll automatically create a pull request for you and bring together all of the release notes from the release on GitHub. So this is a really nice way to sort of manage your dependencies. If you have automated tests, is that it will create a pull request with the upgraded package, and then if you have your tests set up on GitHub Actions, then it will run those tests, and so you can really have a lot of confidence, assuming that your tests have broad coverage. So that was it in terms of semantic versioning. Again, this is one of those things that we're eager. If you have any feedback or if you've had any other things to share regarding this, we'd love to hear you. And let's get to the fun and exciting piece of today, and that is the Prisma data platform. So the Prisma data platform has been around for a while. Some of you may know it as the online data browser, and we're now slowly expanding the functionality. And for this, I want to bring Spiros onto the stage. We're going to bring Spiros, we're going to discuss this a little bit, and also Mahmoud is going to give us a demo. So on that note, I'm going to bring Spiros to the stage.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Spiros. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How are you doing? Mahmoud, how are you?
Very well, very well. We've been very busy here at Prisma, right? We've had a lot of different things going on, but we're now going to talk about the Prisma data platform. So do you want to share a little bit about what the new features of the data platform are?
Yes. So we have been busy working in the onboarding flow. So as you remember, we started first with bringing the studio online so that people could use this as their admin UI, where they could invite other users, assign them to roles, and then make sure that I can have my client go in and change something without messing up everything else. And this has been working, but now we wanted to make it easier for people to get onboarded into this platform and also to Prisma. And that's kind of the context of the recent release, where when you want to get started with Prisma, sometimes you don't have, let's say, Postgres installed in your machine, or you don't want to set up some kind of a Docker to have Postgres, just to evaluate Prisma in like 5 minutes and see what kind of an interface it has. So with this series of features that we built and we laid out in this onboarding flow, you can create a new GitHub repo so that you can evaluate together with your team about Prisma, and this will contain a schema file. And this schema file, it can contain a Prisma schema, obviously, of one of our 4 examples. And then we will also give you a free database if you have a Heroku account in Heroku, a free demo database, of course. This is just one provider that we're starting with, but then, of course, we will start supporting other providers so that you can easily get started, not just with getting to know Prisma, but also with maybe even setting up some proof of concept prototypes very quickly with Prisma, and you can share them with your colleagues and then keep iterating on that.
That's really cool. I think this is a good moment for us to do the demo. Mahmoud, are you ready?
Yes, let me share my screen.
Okay.
One sec.
And to our viewers, I want to remind you that we're watching the comments. So if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them. Also, Alex, thank you so much for reminding me to use my earphones. Sorry about the echo chamber.
Okay, I think I'll have to join and rejoin because I'm having issues with permissions. So one sec. Cool.
No worries. No worries. On that note, maybe Spiros, we can maybe dig into some of the questions that come up. I think one of the so you mentioned that now this new onboarding flow, essentially what it allows users to do is they want to evaluate Prisma, they want to get a feel for what the whole concept of the Prisma schema is and how it sort of enables productivity. And a big part of Prisma has been Prisma Studio, which allowed us to browse data. And now with this application data platform, we're really sort of expanding the possibilities with this cloud service and really bringing this idea of Prisma Studio to a collaborative environment where you can work on this with your colleagues. So I'm curious to hear, now that we have Mahmoud back, are we ready to do the demo? You ready to share the screen?
Yes. Can you see it now?
Yep. Okay, I'll bring it onto the stage, and then we can get back to the question that we started. So, Mahmoud, this is you're looking at the main screen of the Prisma data platform, right?
Yes, you guys can see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so this is the data platform, Prisma data platform. It's super exciting. So right now I'm logged in using GitHub. I already have 2 projects that I've been invited to. So before the live stream, Daniel created a project. He called it Fastify GraphQL Nexus Prisma. It's a bit long, but you can see that I'm a member. And yeah, you can see the GitHub repo. And yeah, so that's super cool. But now I want to create a new project. So first, you can either import an existing Prisma project, but we want to show what it's like if you don't have like a Prisma project. So I'll choose create a new project. We'll be starting from scratch, where like this sets up a GitHub repo for you, and you'll just see. Like I won't spoil it. So first of all, it just shows which GitHub account. So this is mine. And I'll name the project. I'll name it What's New in Prisma Demo. And let me hit create. So project created. Now, this is the, yeah, you were saying something?
I was going to ask, so at this point, a repository will be created for you in GitHub. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. So It's been created. So if I go to GitHub, I will find it, but let's do that later. So now the step is choosing a database. So now I can pick, so like now I can provision a database like right here. So I'll just say provision a new database. I can also connect to an existing database. So if I have a connection string, I'll just link it here and my Prisma schema will be created and will be generated from my database. But let's provision a new database. And here we have the provider, which is Heroku. I already connected Prisma to Heroku. So when you're doing this for the first time, you'll have to add the Prisma app so that the data platform can create a new project for you and set up a database for you. And this will be the Heroku app name. So if you go to Heroku, you'll find a new app that is created with this same name. So let's hit create database. I have to log in using Heroku. So 1 sec.
So we can't see this right now, but basically you got a pop-up of the Heroku login. You're going to log in.
Oh yeah, I'm sharing this tab. So right now it just shows that I'm logging in. I'm entering my password and stuff. And now, yeah, it says I've already created 5 apps. So I have to go to Heroku and delete an app for this to work. I forgot about that. I actually didn't know that there was a limit of 5 apps. So 1 sec, let me delete.
But look at that nice error, right?
Yeah, it made sense. So now I can be like, oh, okay, I have so many apps on Heroku.
Just a small note while you're deleting this project. It's just a small thing that while you're creating this flow, which is only 2 or 3 steps, about 60% of the work, especially towards the end of the project, is towards making sure that these edge cases are accounted for, and also you get relevant error message so that you're not stuck with a generic error message that says connection failed. Perfect.
Okay, so now it worked. I deleted the old project. And now this is a really cool step. You get Prisma schema examples. So you can see what it would look like for different examples. So this is the first example. This is a URL shortener. You can see that we have a link model, and each user will have a list of links. and then a link will have the original URL and then like a shortened version. And then you also have other examples, one for a music streaming service, one for a rentals platform, one for a SaaS. And yeah, I highly encourage you to go to cloud.prisma.io, try this new flow, and see the different schemas. But I'll just go with this one. And as you can see, there's also the option to have sample data. And this is, so like this will seed your database. And now you will have a new Prisma project with a database, with a Prisma schema, with data inside of it. So yeah, like I'm like, I really am impressed with this. Like we said, it takes 3 minutes, and it really takes 3 minutes. And yeah, now I have a project that is created, and I can invite Daniel if I want. But yeah, like I'll just click invite user, enter his username. I believe it's tocolor, like this.
Yep, that's right.
And there are different roles. So you can see that there's an admin, so he can do like read and write access. There's a developer, there's a collaborator, and then there's a viewer. Let's make him a developer and add to project. And he should be added. And if Daniel shares his screen, we will be like, you'll be able to see that it's there. And yeah, I guess this is it.
Can we look at the data browser?
Yeah.
So
I was just about to do that.
And we also had a question. Do we want to pause there? We had a question from Ahmed Osama, who asked, why can't we change the GitHub branch after we create the project?
So that's something that we can support later. We don't support now, just for small technical limitations, but feedback taken, and we can look into this.
Thank you, Ahmed. Consider it taken. And we had also a question from Francisco here, who asked if there's a way to work with models in different files. This is an interesting one. It's not really pertaining directly to the Prisma data platform, but we do have this feature in the roadmap, and in the next couple of months you can expect to see more progress on that, so stay tuned. But back to the data browser. Sorry for cutting your demo every time.
No, it's fine. But yeah, so like now you'll see that I already have like a user model, and yeah, I have randomly generated data for the user model and also the link model. So like this is the URL shortener example. And yeah, you have a complete Prisma project with a database with data inside it, where you can invite people with different like access levels, which is great. And if I go to my GitHub now, I'll actually share my screen instead of a tab. So one sec. Share window. Okay, you should be able to see it now. Okay, so now if I click on this link, you'll see that there is a GitHub repo created for me. Yeah, there's even a model here that is generated, like the database schema.
So there's, I guess, a bunch of questions that arise now, but it's really cool to see. So basically, what did we do here? We just logged into the Prisma data platform. We created a new project. We picked a name for the project. We provisioned the database in Heroku. And then the data platform, what it did for us, it created the repository on GitHub. It gave us this nice diagram showing us the data model. It allowed us to pick a schema. It gave us access to the data browser, which I already see now. So I have the What's New in Prisma demo, and I can also browse the data. So thank you for sharing that, Mahmoud. And there's a few questions that arise here that perhaps we can discuss with you, Spiros. So I guess the first question is, and I'll remove for now the screen share. The first question is, in which cases would you recommend using the Prisma data platform?
So the first one is the one that we have been using so far, the online admin interface, the thing that people are using mostly the Prisma data platform for now. But there are some other interesting use cases we're currently working in, so maybe that's interesting to mention. So going back to the onboarding flow, you probably saw that you this flow went well, and then you were able to view the data, and then you went to the GitHub repo, and it also had at the bottom of the README file some instructions on how you can set it up locally, and then that way you can go, after you have provisioned the project and all these connected resources, you can evaluate Prisma in your local machine by running the Prisma queries in a file and then seeing what it is all about. So what would be cooler than that? And what we're now building is that we want to give you a way as a new user to run these test Prisma queries on the browser. So what we're building is something like a query console, or basically a query console like GraphQL for Prisma queries. So after you have gone through this 3-minute process, you may want to check out locally, but if you don't want to, you can keep continuing and then going like prisma.users.findMany and then check like, oh, what are the aggregates? Cool, that's working great. And then run another query and another query. And this will complete the whole onboarding vision that we have created. That's a feature that will come in the next couple of weeks. And it's also a feature that we hope you find useful, not only for in the onboarding context, but also when you want to debug something in production, when you want to try something out and see like what is the size of the data that comes back. There's plenty of interesting use cases. We're also thinking with regards to performance. If, for example, we see that you may run a query that sorts or filters by an unindexed, not indexed field, we might tell you that, hey, you need to add an index first because you have like a huge database, a lot of traffic or something. So these are some ideas that we have for the next steps.
So theoretically, if I were to just quickly share my screen, and I'm looking here at the project that Mahmoud just created, and he added me as a member. So I can already go now to the data browser, and I can sort of like start exploring some of the data in this. With this new query browser, what I'll be able to do is, right now I just get a listing of basically all the data in the database. With this query browser, I can actually start doing more fine-tuned queries to maybe do aggregations, to get maybe some group bys and do some all sorts of interesting calculations, things like that. I could maybe even do a query where I sort the users in this example by the number of links that they have, all sorts of things like this. And I can see how this would be quite useful in situations where I might not even have editing ability. I might just have the viewer role, but I can still run all sorts of analytics queries to see what's going on in production and how are things going, and all this using the same familiar interface that Prisma Client provides, and that is essentially the Prisma Client API. Now, this is just the beginning. So you mentioned the query console, but we have a much, much broader vision that includes a lot more things. And from this, I think this is maybe a good moment to leeway into the upcoming serverless data proxy that we're going to offer. Is that something that you want to speak to at all, Spiros, or do you want me to just dive into it?
I'm just going to say that I'm looking forward to this feature. That's not something that my team is working on. Alberto would be great to tell more about this. But I'm really excited because so far in the platform, we've been building features that cater to developer workflows. But this will be the first feature of the Prisma data platform that sits right in the runtime of your application. So whatever request goes in and out, if you want, it will be using this data proxy, which will finally solve. I think there was also a comment or a question about the connections with the serverless Postgres in the live stream. This problem will probably be solved by this.
Yes, so this was a question that came from Technology Umum, who asked about using Prisma and Postgres with in cloud functions. And of course, this is a topic that I think has been an issue for the whole serverless community for quite a while. And that is, databases are quite constrained in terms of the numbers of connections that they can handle. Postgres allows you to configure a certain number, the limit of connections that you can set up, but setting up each of these connections is quite expensive. And due to the nature of serverless functions, when they run, they can only serve a single user. So essentially what you have this situation where you have many, especially if you have traffic spikes, many functions that are instantiated for each user request. And these very quickly, they exhaust the connection limit of your database. And so one of the very common solutions with something like Postgres has been you introduce an infrastructure component in the middle called PG Bouncer, and that does the connection pulling for you. It maintains the maximum number of open connections that your database can handle. It keeps them open, and essentially it allows many more connections to come into PG Bouncer from these serverless functions, and what it does is it slowly funnels them through to the database. And the challenge with PG Bouncer right now is that it's not always so simple to set up. So we have Superbase. They have they give you a Postgres database, and in addition to that, a PG Bouncer instance. So that has solved it for many users. But we want to really solve this natively in Prisma and give you the ability to use that technology also with MySQL and all of the databases that we support, because PG Bouncer is very much focused on Postgres, and so I don't think there is one solution that is agreed on in the MySQL world. And so this will really, if you're using Prisma now in serverless functions, the experience, we understand it's still a bit rough around the edges, but this is all going to improve. And I want to invite you, if you're interested in trying this out, to sign up at the link. I'll also drop this in the comments, and you'll be able to find that link. You can also find that obviously in the release notes. But yeah, this gives you a chance to sign up for the early access program that will give you a chance to look at this. So with that, we'll wrap up the release notes. And we also had a question from Purshad Chadel, who asked if it's possible to view MongoDB data in the Prisma data platform right now.
Unfortunately, the answer is no. Even though in local studio you should be able to view MongoDB, Mongo data, we still don't support connection strings from MongoDB. But it is, of course, in the roadmap.
Yes, and it's probably a good moment to remind that MongoDB is still in preview, so by the time that it reaches the GA, general availability, you should expect to see feature parity where it's possible. And we also had a really nice comment from Paulo, who said, "Thank you, Daniel and team, data proxy looks promising." So it's great to hear that. Also, thank you to, we had Coding and Caffeine, who said, "Hey coders and Prisma fans, hello to you." And we also had a question we will get to later. And on that note, I think it's probably, we have a bunch more updates. We have this new Egghead course that our former colleague, Ryan C. has created. And before we do that, I'd like to thank you, Spiros, for joining us today. It's been really great having you, and I look forward to having you on What's New in Prisma again when we have a lot of new features to show in the Prisma data platform.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to that moment again. Bye-bye.
Ciao. All right, now it's just the two of us, Mahmoud, and our viewers. So let's find the link to the Egghead course.
Node.io.
Let's see. And where do we have it? Oh, yeah. Have you got it? Can I share your screen, Mahmoud?
One sec. I'm still looking.
Oh, there we go. I found it.
I found it too. You can share my screen.
All right. Let's do that.
And wait 1 sec.
Okay. Your screen is shared. So this is a new Egghead course. It's the nice thing about Egghead is that it really breaks it down into small sections. But this really just goes through the very basics of starting with Prisma. So if you are new to Prisma and you have an Egghead membership, I highly recommend it that you check it out. Yeah, so Peter asked about Ryan C. yeah, I suggest that you check out Ryan C's Twitter. He's working on a new platform. Yeah, check out his Twitter. He's working on a new venture. Do you remember the name, Mahmoud, of the new
Yeah, it's called Course Lift, I believe.
course
So
lift?
courselift.com. Yeah, courselift.com. I think it's just a landing page for now. Yeah, so like this course has been in the works before he decided to take on this exciting journey. So yeah, and that this course just got released now, and it is a basically Prisma 101 where you build a backend from scratch. So if you know someone that is interested in learning Prisma, you can point them to this playlist. So let me share a link.
Yeah, I just dropped a
Did,
link in the comments.
did I? All right.
And we had a question for you, Mahmoud, from Tarun, who asked, can you explain Prisma in integration on React Native mobile apps? I believe
I
you also
believe
are working on a course, but I'm not sure if that includes React Native.
no, it doesn't. So like the course I'm working on is a full stack app using Next.js, GraphQL, TypeScript, Prisma, and also Auth0 for authentication. But we currently don't support React Native, right? Like Prisma doesn't run in React Native
Well, I
environments.
should say that React Native should be treated as a front end framework, essentially.
Yeah,
And so if you're using React Native, you're building apps with it, you can still sort of make HTTP calls the same way that you would in React. And given that, you can still build a GraphQL API, you can build a REST API, whatever you see fit. But in that case, the real interface that you're working with is GraphQL. How you
yeah.
implement that GraphQL API, you can do that with Prisma, and there's many different approaches. Um, yeah, you can't use Prisma essentially natively in a React Native
Yeah,
app.
so
The same
like
way,
the
yeah.
same, yeah, with like React. So what happens is you have your front end or a client. It can be a web app or a mobile app, and then you'll talk to the server through an API. The API can be a REST API, a GraphQL API, and yeah, like it can be any type of API. And yeah, I was also going to enter to RPC, and yeah, and then you'll just make requests, and then you'll get a response. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and thanks, Alex. Okay, we also had a question from Apon. How can I get enums in Prisma client? So this is a bit of an ambiguous question. Maybe you can clarify it a bit more, but you can define enums in your Prisma schema. And when you define those, depending on which database you use, an enum will also be created in the database schema that you're using, for example, Postgres. And one of the other things that you get when you define an enum in your Prisma schema is you also get the generated types, and the generated types in Prisma client also include those enums. So you can import them from Prisma client and use them in your application. So I hope that answers your question. And if not,
Yeah, I can
please.
also clarify further. So, for example, say you have a user model. A user will have a role, so you will create an enum for the role, and this role can either maybe be like an admin or a regular user. And then what happens is in the user model, you'll define like a field called role, and the type will be the enum, and then you'll just have access to it. Yeah. But like I believe this is only like this is not supported in like all database providers. This is supported in a couple of them. PostgreSQL support enums. But yeah.
Great. We also have some more updates to share. So we spoke about the Egghead course. We also have the Prisma Roadshow coming up. And this will be, we'll be going to Budapest, to Warsaw, and to Poznan. So we're going to be in Hungary, and we're going to be in Poland. And so if you haven't seen this already, I'll share my screen once again. And let's add this to the stream. And so these are the dates. If you follow us on Twitter, you can get all of the other details. So if you are living in one of those cities and you want to meet us in person, we're going to be around. You can come. We'll get some. We're going to be giving a talk about Prisma. There's going to be some food, and we're going to have some stickers, and you'll get a chance to meet some of the Prisma engineers. So that's that. And We also had a live stream on, I believe it was one of the Microsoft live streams on VS Code. And we had one of Prisma's engineers and one former developer advocate who's turned into an engineer join that. So I will drop a link to that if you're interested in learning a bit more about the VS Code extension for Prisma. And on that note, I think we're almost ready to wrap up. There's one more thing that I wanted to plug, and that is the NAPI, the Node API preview feature, which is still in preview. This does change the characteristics of your, of basically the runtime performance of a Prisma application, as some of you may know. And also we had Crazy Access here asking about Rust. We'll get to your question in a moment. But as you may know, we have the Prisma engine, which is a Rust binary, which actually does all of the heavy lifting for Prisma. And that is a process that is started by, oh, I'm sorry, don't know how that happened. Okay, yeah. So we have this Rust binary that runs when you start Prisma client in your node.js application, and the communication between the two happens over HTTP. With this new feature, this Node API preview feature, which you can just simply by adding the flag to your Prisma schema preview features array, it will actually share memory across the two processes. So it changes the performance and basically the way that the Prisma engine runs. And it should improve performance quite significantly. So if you haven't already, this is going to go to GA soon, but this is your chance to already try it out and give us feedback if you like. And
yeah, and it shouldn't change anything with how Prisma works. It's just a performance boost without you needing to do anything. So yeah, if you want to try it out, enable it as a preview feature, and yeah, let us know.
Also, another benefit which I forgot to mention, which is it makes the size, if you're using Prisma in a serverless function, it makes it a lot smaller because it apparently doesn't have to download the binary. So if you're using and if you're hitting that limit, the memory, the sort of the storage limit of a serverless function, this can also potentially help you with that. Yes, we had Arturo, who's joining from Paraguay. Hello from Berlin and hello from Egypt, I guess.
Yeah, Egypt.
Okay, we had some questions to get to. Or is Prisma going to port to Rust? So no, Prisma client will stay, maintain its support for TypeScript. The Prisma engine continues to be developed in Rust, and we're heavily invested in that. It allows us to do a lot of really sort of like optimized querying, and Rust is really a well-designed language for this kind of thing. So it does a lot of the heavy lifting, the connection pulling that is built into the engine, and all of the query logic. So I hope that answers the question. We also have the Go client for Prisma. And they all rely on that same Prisma engine that is written in Rust. And with that, I think we're just about ready to wrap up. If you have any more questions, please ask them now. Otherwise, we'll see you here again for the next What's New in Prisma in 2 weeks. And let's see if there's anything.
I don't think there is.
Okay. Nope, I don't see any questions. Well, Mahmoud, it's always a lot of fun going on live streams. I think this is one of the very first What's New in Prismas that we're doing together.
Yeah.
And we're going to have many more in the future. So I look forward to that. And thank you, all of you, for joining us today. That was a lot of fun. And if you haven't already, check out the Prisma data platform. And with that, we'll leave you.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.